something simple, okay? It's practically retaking something that you checked on basic 2 and basic 3, I think. And well, today on basic 5, we are going to recycle those topics because now on this level, you are going to confront these two topics at the same time. So what are going to be the topics? We are speaking about the present simple and the present continuous. In previous levels, you check the present simple and then you also check the present continuous, guys. But now here on basic 5, we need to have, no, how can I say this? We will have to work with the two topics at the same time, okay? So in this case, it's pertinent for us to know the differences between present simple, present continuous, in what situations I use present simple, in what situations the present continuous, and obviously in what situations is appropriate to use one or the other, okay? So in order for me to explain this topic, children, what I normally do is to do it on the digital whiteboard here on Zoom, okay? So let's going to have a look to the whiteboard, guys. Only considering that this is officially the first grammar topic, I want you to remember, kids, in case that something is not clear, in case that you have some questions, please tell me and we check all of the questions right here in class, okay?
Okay, teacher.
Okay, kids, so let's get it started. And well, as I just mentioned, let's go to the whiteboard here on Zoom. So tell me, people, can you see the whiteboard?
Yes.
Yes, teacher.
Okay, kids. So let me get started on this part. Well, my friends, probably this is going to be the only easy topic here on Basic 5. And well, as you know, this is something that individually you checked in Basic 2 and Basic 3, I think. So this is the topic, my friends. The present simple contrasted with the present continuous, okay? So let's get into this part, my friends. And well, I think that for us to have it better organized, guys, let's start very quick refreshing or remembering the uses of the different tenses. Let's begin with the present simple. So maybe in here, guys, I would like to check what you remember. So tell me something, people. What do you remember about the present simple? In what situations do we use it?
States, actions.
For what?
States.
Okay, for states or actions. Okay.
A bit.
Okay, that's another possible use to speak about habits. Or in a similar word, we can say routines, okay? Any other thing that you remember?
Facts.
For facts, yes, of
information.
course. What else, Katia?
Real information.
No seas malita, Katia. ¿Te puedes apretar 3 veces el botón de volumen para que te escuche?
Real information.
Ah, okay. Thank you. Okay. Yes, of course. Okay. So practically with facts, guys, it's exactly what Katia was just saying. Real information that is true all of the times. Okay. And practically this is what we have about the present simple, okay? Anything else that you remember about the present simple? What else, Raul? Oh, yeah, that's it. Okay.
Descriptions.
What else, my friends?
Descriptions.
Also, right? Okay, so that's another important part, guys, to speak of descriptions. And well, in this case, in the part of descriptions, okay, we can describe a lot of things. We can describe the personality of a person. We can describe the physical appearance. We can describe a location or a place. A lot of things that we can describe, okay? Now, children, I think that it's not really necessary, or just in case, I'm only going to remind you a couple of examples in the present simple, so for you not to have any problems. Now, guys, remember that the present simple is used in two different ways. We use the present simple either with the verb to be or with the rest of the verbs that exist in English, okay? As you remember, in the case of the verb to be, we have three different forms in present simple. Which are these three forms, guys? What do you remember?
Is, are.
Very good. Is and are. Okay. So, guys, in this case, this is the form. Normally, what's the point of using the verb to be in here? Maybe we can increase in the combi, my friends. Oh my goodness, let me silence your classmate. Okay. So, essentially speaking here, guys, we can use the verb to be mostly to speak of descriptions. Some other times it can be to describe a state, but not always is with the verb to be. But commonly, yes, okay? And well, as you remember in this case, okay, sorry. Maybe I can have a description of the person. Maybe in this case, I am describing myself. I am a teacher. Maybe I can describe a state or a feeling, perhaps. Maybe I can say, Raul is angry, right? Or, I don't know, we can describe another things. I don't know. The bathroom is next to the kitchen. I don't know. What's happening? Descriptions can also involve locations, okay, my friends? And well, I think that it's not really necessary for me to repeat with what subjects I use am, is, or are, or yes?
No, sure.
No, I think that is for basic 2. But well, this is only for you to remember that. Now, remember that in the case of negative sentences with the verb to be, guys, the negation or the negative part is in the same verb to be. Let's say, for example, I can say, I am not a doctor. Or, well, if you wish, you can use a contraction with I and am. And then just add the word not. So either you say, I am not a doctor, or I'm not a doctor. Whatever option you prefer. In the case of the verb to be with is, I think that you know the way to make negatives. Maybe we can have this other example. Raul is not, or make the contraction isn't. Raul isn't happy with the class. Well, I really hope that it's not true, right? But let's imagine. Okay, my friends? And well, Maybe I didn't create examples with are. Okay, also to speak of a negative location or description, etc. We aren't or are not at ESIA Zacatenco. Any problems in here?
True story.
Not any problems?
No, teacher.
Okay, kids. Now, just for me to finish this fast, remember that in the case of interrogative sentences, children, what happens with interrogatives? It's very simple. Remember that for interrogatives, we only have to make the switch of my subject and my verb to be, okay? So in a question, perhaps I can say, I am a teacher, are you a teacher, or am I a teacher? In the case of Raul, Raul is angry, or is Raul angry, etc., etc. Okay, my friends? Now, this is what we have in the case of the verb to be, guys. Very easy for you. Now, remember that in the case of the verbs or the rest of the verbs, we have a different story, right? So remember that in this case, my friends, the verbs are very important that you remember that in affirmative sentences, let's start with affirmatives. The verb has a little modification depending on the subject. Possibly you remember that when we use subjects, he, she, or it, in affirmative sentences, the verb tends to have a letter S or a ES at the end, remember?
Yes, teacher.
Yes.
Yes, teacher.
So for example, maybe with the verb like, with subject I like pizza, but, well, I can do exactly the same with the subjects you, we, and they. However, remember that in the case of the subjects, he, she, or even the subject it, what happens? Remember that the verb in here usually tends to have an S. He likes pizza, she likes pizza, etc. Okay, my friends? Any questions for the moment?
No, teacher.
No, teacher.
Now, kids, same happens now in the case of negative sentences. Remember, in negative sentences with the verbs, we tend to use what we call the auxiliary verbs. Verbs that do not have other objective than indicating a negation, okay? Or sometimes an interrogative sentence. And well, keep in mind, same situation with possibilities for me to indicate a sentence for a routine. One of these possibilities, my friends, is when I use the frequency adverbs. Do you remember the frequency adverbs, people?
Yes.
Yes, teacher.
Yes, what are the frequency adverbs? Tell me.
Always. Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Usually.
Always, sometimes,
Hardly ever.
hardly ever, usually,
Never.
okay, often you mentioned also, What
Sometimes.
others?
Sometimes.
Never.
Sometimes,
Never.
Hardly ever.
hardly ever, yes, of course.
Occasionally.
Occasionally, exactly.
Rarely.
Which other?
Ever.
Rarely?
Yes.
We have this, oh, come on. We have this other, rarely,
Never.
never. And well, practically in this case, guys, we are missing maybe 2 or 3 more, but in the end, you get the point. Attention in this case, guys, common problems that we have in here. Remember that normally we use these frequency adverbs to express or to speak of a routine. Normally these frequency adverbs, guys, these frequency adverbs, they give us an approximation. Give me a moment. Approximation of the literally frequency or regularity en la cual, in which an action happens. So they are not very specific, but they more or less tell us it is with a very big frequency, a more or less frequency, or a very small frequency, right? In this case, depending on the adverb, it's not the same regularity or the same frequency with the word always than using or speaking of a regularity with rarely. Okay, with always, we know that it is a lot of frequency, a lot of regularity. In the case of rarely, a very little regularity in which the action happens. Okay. Any questions in here for the moment?
No, teacher.
No, teacher.
Now, a lot of attention in here, guys, because yes, there is some adverbs. Don't forget that with frequency adverbs, yes, similar to what we checked a moment ago, don't forget that we can use frequency adverbs with sentences with the verb to be or with the rest of the verbs. But attention in here, guys. No, it's the other. Always remember, when you use the frequency adverbs, always, usually, often, sometimes, etc., you need to use them always next to the verb to be, after the verb to be. For example, in this case, guys, if I tell you Omar is always, I don't know, sleepy in class. Okay, attention in here, guys. As you can observe, yes, I use the verb to be in here, but the frequency adverb is after, is next of the verb to be, okay? Same happens in other sentence. We are usually on Zoom conferences. Okay, another example, but the principle is practically the same, in which the frequency adverbs go next to the verb to be, okay, my friends? And remember that this is common in affirmatives, negatives, or also in questions, okay, my friends? But
Yes,
attention, remember that with the rest of the verbs is the opposite. Remember that in the case of the other verbs or the rest of the verbs that exist in English, the frequency adverbs go previously to the verb, not after. It's the contrary from the verb to be. For example, in here, what do we have? Another little example. Omar always cooks quesadillas for dinner. What happens? We have the verb, but this time the frequency adverb goes before, goes previously from the verb, okay? Okay, same situation happens with a different example. We never have conferences on Google Meet. Okay, what is the verb? In this case, my verb is the verb have, but my frequency adverb. Similar, when it is not the verb to be, we need to put it previously to whatever verb we use, okay? But don't forget, in case it's the verb to be, it goes next. All clear in this part, my friends?
Yes, teacher.
Okay. So for routines or habits, guys, yes, we have the frequency adverbs. Don't forget the correct collocation on the sentence. But a part of the frequency adverbs, people, remember that we also have these words or these phrases that we call expressions of frequency. And well, what happens in the case of expressions of frequency, guys? They are more or less similar to the adverbs of frequency, with the difference that these expressions are not only for me to say approximations, they are more exact to mention the frequency or the regularity of whichever action happens. Okay, and what happens in the case of the expressions of frequency, guys? Okay, maybe we have a lot of possibilities in here. Maybe, for example, one that is very common, we can use the expression every day. Or maybe we can use the expressions with once, or maybe twice, once a day, or twice a day. Remember that once is one time, twice, two times, remember?
Yes.
And well, in this case, you can create a lot of combinations, my friends. Twice a day, twice a week, twice, I don't know, a month, twice a year, a decade, a century, a millennium, a lot of combinations that you can create, okay, my friends? So what's the point in here? That these type of expressions are more exact. But, okay, maybe we have a lot of different expressions, but you need to keep in mind that these expressions normally give me the exact regularity in which the action happens. Okay, my friends?
Yes.
Any problems in here?
No, teacher.
Now, just try to remember that in this case, when we speak of expressions of frequency, guys, okay, I shouldn't have it. Okay, remember that in this case, with expressions of frequency, could be in the case of the verb to be or in the case of the rest of the verbs, Okay, in these two cases, guys, the expressions of frequency work exactly in the same part of the sentence. The most common part is that you use these expressions at the end of the sentence. Or it is also possible to use these expressions at the beginning of the sentence. So the point in here with these expressions of frequency that are very exact or very precise, these are your options. You use these expressions at the end or you use them to start the sentence, okay? For example, every day, Raul is angry. Okay, poor Raul, he's going to hate me. Okay. My goodness. Or I can say, my friends, Raul is angry every day. Okay, today, tomorrow, that is the routine of Raul in this sentence, okay? So what happens in here, it's optional, okay? You start the sentence with a specific expression of the frequency of the action, or you finish the sentence with the same. Whatever you choose. Normally, or in reality, children, whenever we use English, both sentences are correct, but I personally recommend that you try to use these expressions at the end of the sentence, okay? It is more common than using them at the very beginning of the sentence. It's not bad, but I recommend go for the end of the sentence, okay, my friends?
Yes, teacher. Thanks.
And well, even if we have a verb, guys, or other verb that is not the verb to be, the story is practically the same. For example, if I say Katia, Katia drinks tequila twice a day. Okay, so I know that Katia does this action, but with the specific regularity of 2 times a day, twice a day. My goodness, Katia is very alcoholic in this group. But well, you can also do it at the very beginning. Whatever option, could be with verb to be, could be with verbs, but these expressions that are very specific on the regularity are at the end or at the beginning, okay? So they are more or less similar to the frequency adverbs, guys. Just keep in mind that in the case of the frequency adverbs, children, don't forget that these frequency adverbs, they are not very specific. They only give me an approximation of the regularity. Always, okay, all the times. Sometimes, maybe yes, maybe not, but I don't know the specific regularity. It's only an approximation. Different from the expressions of frequency, children, that in this case, they tend to be precise, okay? The number of times or the specific days in which the action happened. All clear in here?
Yes, teacher.
Okay, this was like a very quick lesson of everything that maybe you check in basic 2, my friends, but just for you to remember all of it in one class. Easy or difficult?
Easy.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions?
No, teacher.
No, teacher.
Teacher.
Okay, kids. So let me move on to the next one. Maybe the present simple is the most complicated time, but now let's move to the present continuous. Can I erase all of this, my friends? Yes, I can erase.
Yes, teacher.
Okay. So don't worry. This is why I asked, in case that maybe you were taking notes or pictures or whatever. Okay, Vanessa, do you have any questions?
No, teacher.
No, es que tienes la cara de, ay, ¿qué me está diciendo?
No, I was taking a screenshot, so.
Ah, okay. So I thought that you were like really, really worried. Okay. Very well. Okay, somebody's sending something. Ah, okay, so you sent the screen. Ah, okay. Ya está el screenshot ahí en el grupo, niños. Okay. So, ¿quién le mandó, Rafa? Okay, very good.
Yes.
Thanks, Rafa.
No problem.
Ok, kids, ¿saben qué? No me van a alcanzar 3 minutos para dar present continuous, al menos necesito 10. Entonces hacemos esto, chicos. Cerramos esta conferencia. And okay, here I have it. Can you see the whiteboard?
Yes, teacher.
Yes, teacher.
Okay. So kids, the next part or the last part for you to remember, the present continuous. Now, in this case, children, what do you remember of the present continuous?
It's for actions of the moment.
Okay,
Activities in process.
exactly, in process because they are in this moment. Exactly,
In this
yes.
moment.
So actions. What else?
Future plans.
Aha. So maybe the common use is to speak of actions that happen at this moment. In other words, kids, the present continuous is the time that speaks of the real present, what happens in this moment. And well, as another person mentioned, guys, it's not only to speak, it is also possible to use the present continuous to refer to a future plan. But well, how do we do one and how do we do the other? Let's pay attention. Don't forget, in the case of the present continuous, guys, remember that the sentences start to be a little bit more complex. So in all of the sentences with the present continuous, guys, well, we have our subject, but remember that next to the subject, I need to use the verb to be depending on the subject. Is, am, are, and this verb to be is at the same time in combination with another verb, but this other verb needs to be in ing form, okay, my friends? And well, after the verb to be and the verb in ing, the rest of the sentence or the complement in case that it's necessary. So, for example, actions that happen at this exact moment. For example, children, right now in this moment, we are taking an English class. This is what happens or what is happening in this real present, okay? I don't know, maybe let me look. Okay. Another real situation is that in this moment, Bethel is falling asleep, my friends. Ya hasta está bostezando la chatita aquí. My goodness, okay. Another situation I can observe is the next. Eduardo is taking notes of the class. If you look at our classmate Eddie, he's with the pen, taking notes, very concentrated. So what's the point in here, guys? The combination with Isamar and ing is for us to represent this exact moment. Something that I know that you checked on basic 3, but just in case, do you have any questions?
No, teacher.
No, teacher.
Okay. Now, children, what happens in the case of future plans? For the moment, I'm only giving you the idea of how to create future plans because we need to check this in a specific in another different lesson. But for you to start creating yourselves an idea, pay attention in here. How do we make a sentence in present continuous that refers to the future? Always remember, guys, that in the case of the future plans, for me to transform present continuous into the future, I need to do the next. The important part, my friends, is to add, similar to the expressions of frequency, at the beginning or at the end of the sentence, a time expression that refers to the future. Attention in this part. What's the point in here? If I look at this sentence that we have in here, guys, we are taking an English class. If I look the sentence like this, it's something in this moment. But if I tell you we are taking an English class tomorrow, okay, with this little expression that is referring to a time, automatically all of the sentence refers to something in the future, okay? Keep in mind that, yes, similarly as the time expressions, I can also start with these expressions at the beginning. Tomorrow, we are taking an English class. Okay. So at the beginning or at the end, guys, is what we need to ask a present continuous sentence so it transforms into a future sentence and not a present one, okay? And well, children, what could be some of the most common expressions that we use to speak of the future? Maybe well, as you can observe, yes, we can speak about tomorrow. Maybe we can use the expressions with next Monday, or next week, next month, year, century, millennium, etc., etc. Okay. You can also be specific with the preposition in 2 or in 3, in 4, in 10, depending on the number. And you can take it from minutes, hours, 10 hours, in 10 days, in 10 weeks, in 10 months, years, etc., 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 okay? Sometimes it's also possible to use expressions with the preposition after. Normally we use after and we indicate a specific day or a specific moment in time. After class or after vacations, after Christmas, after I don't know, after the party. So you can also mention specific moments in time or specific events in which you have the plan of the for the future after that moment, okay, or next of that moment, okay? Any problems in here?
No, teacher.
No, no one?
No.
Okay. So remember that it's a complete obligation, children, to use these expressions or maybe some others, but I am giving you the most common for you to represent the sentence in future. Because remember, in case that you don't use these expressions in the present continuous, guys, then it's not a future plan. If it doesn't have an expression, then the sentence represents this moment, okay? So it's the difference of this moment and future. All clear?
Okay, teacher.
Okay, easy or difficult?
Easy. Easy.
Easy.
Easy, okay, okay. Apparently your other teachers did a good job. Okay. Excellent, guys. Now, the point in here, children, is as I just mentioned at the very beginning of the class, I know that you check the present simple in basic 1 and basic 2. I know that you check the present continuous in basic 3. But now, guys, what is going to be the point? The point is that now you are going to work with the present simple and the present continuous at the same time. What happens in here? In which this time you need to be very observative into the sentence or the sentences and decide if the sentence is referring or to a routine or to an action in this moment. Is it referring to a fact or it's referring to a plan in the future? Is it referring to a description or it's referring about something in the moment? So you need now to be able to contrast the different functions of present simple, present continuous, and now determine what is the correct to use depending on what we want to say, okay? Now, children, are you sure you don't have any questions?
No, teacher.
No, teacher.
Teacher.
Ok, chicos. El día de hoy van a trabajar en una... se las voy a empezar a dejar fácil por hoy. Mañana le subimos la dificultad a esto. Pero por hoy, chicos, les voy a dejar 2 actividades relacionadas a este tema. Contraparte de esto, pasado simple contra pasado continuo. El pasado simple ya sé que ya lo han checado, chicos, pero el pasado continuo oficialmente no lo han checado. Y no es tan fácil como es el presente continuo. No crean que nada más se pasa a pasado y ya está. Tiene muchos usos, entonces, y ya son enunciados muy complejos los que vamos a empezar a hacer. Pero si se quieren ir empapando en lo que es hoy y mañana, vayan checando, porque el pasado continuo que vamos a checar mañana, chicos, son enunciados en los que se usa exactamente al mismo tiempo con el pasado simple. Entonces, no está mal que recuerden un poquito cómo se usa el pasado simple. Estudien sus verbos, por favor, niños. Espero que ya no sea problema que no se sepan los verbos a estas alturas. Y si sigue siendo un problema, tienen 24 horas para practicar sus verbos. Porque no me voy a parar en eso mañana, me voy a parar en todas las funciones, porque sí es un tema bastante extenso. No es lo mismo que presente simple y continuo, aunque sea pasado simple y continuo, sí es más complejo, ¿ok, niños? Pero bueno, eso va a ser lo que chequemos mañana. ¿Va que va?
Yes, teacher, thanks.
Hey, teacher.